Good evening and welcome to Inside the Rookery Season 8, Episode 7, where we are talking about taking a game from conception to Kickstarter with Rob Gelb. Gelb, welcome to the stream. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, we're here to pick your brains is what we're here to do.
We are. I've moved you up to the top right corner as the star guest of the stream.
Very kind of you. Very, very kind of you.
And we've got loads of questions pre-submitted from patrons in the Discord server, as always. And if you're in the chat room, please do pop any comments or extra questions in the chat, and I will bring them up on the screen as I always do. But before we get on with the questions, I'm just going to bring up the link to the Kickstarter. That's the first of many times. We will pop that up on the screen and in the chat room this evening, and also to the YouTube video about pickleball or Hotshot Pickleball, because I'm sure there's many other videos on YouTube about pickleball in general. But before we get into all of the questions, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Gelb. I'm based in Edinburgh. I'm originally from the US, as you could probably tell, but I've been over here for a little while, off and on since 2006. I kind of come from the startup world. I've done a bunch of different companies, or run a bunch of different companies, mostly in tech, and have been designing board games and other types of games in my spare time, and never really thought about taking it seriously until a couple of years ago when I was like, all right, gotta give this a shot and permit the creativity to emerge and see if it's if anybody else likes it or if it's a complete dud. So yeah, my kind of journey to board games has been relatively recent, but have been having a really great time so far.
So before we talk about Hotshot Pickleball, Roderick wants to know, what is pickleball full stop?
What is it indeed? Pickleball is this mashup between tennis, table tennis, ping pong, and badminton. It has kind of elements of all three of them. It's played on a court that is the same size as a badminton court. So if you're not familiar with that, it's about like half the size of a tennis court, give or take. But it's played with a paddle like ping pong, and it's also played with a hard ball. In the States, we call this a wiffle ball. I don't really know what you'd call it here.
So I would call that a unihawk ball, because when we were, do you remember, Andy? Come on, when we were kids and we played like unihawk and unilacrosse, and it was like miniature hockey with plastic things, and that's what the ball was like. No, just at my school then. Okay. Oh,
I can't
Andy.
hear Andy.
So I was typing it earlier. Yeah.
So I was under the impression that pickleball was a variation on like beer pong, where you threw a pickle into a cup and then you had to drink the contents of the cup.
That
says a
might
lot
be
about
true.
my time, my sports activities in America.
Well, I mean, beer pong and other great American sports.
There you go.
But basically, it's a game that originally was invented at a summer camp in like the late 60s. But ever since about 2015 onwards, it's become really, really big in the States. It's technically the fastest growing sport in the world. There are 32 million players just in the US of it alone. What's really interesting about it as a sport is that you're able to play regardless of your fitness level. And ironically, if you are stronger, taller, more powerful, you usually are a bit less good than someone who isn't. So all sorts of ages can play it, from kids to folks who are well past retirement. It's also the fastest growing sport amongst like retirees. There's even a trend in the US where there's an increase in hospital admissions that they are ascribing to pickleball, because there are more hips that are being fractured and knees that are being fractured, because it's bringing out a lot of older people to play. And so, yeah, it's become this massive thing. Celebrities own pickleball teams now. There are 2 major leagues. It's on TV. It's gotten a little out of hand. So we thought, well, it's called pickleball. That's a bit ridiculous. Surely it should be played by pickles.
Does anyone know why it is called pickleball? Is that lost to the mists of time?
So there are a bunch of different like stories or tales. My preferred one is the fact that the ball, it's often it's green and it has holes in it, so they look like, it kind of looks like a pickle. But no, like there are a whole bunch of different stories out there based off of. I think it was invented by a couple of dads who wanted a sport for their kids, and then picked up at a summer camp. So it was it might very well be lost to time. But I do think that the name is one of the reasons why it's become so popular and so successful, because it's a great hook. Pickleball, what the heck's that? And then you kind of discover that it's this, fun to play game.
And it's funny that's another thing that just a couple of guys randomly playing a game name it. I don't know if you all know this. I did some research this week. September the 19th is renowned as International Talk Like a Pirate Day. I don't know if you know that, but again, that was just from a couple of guys. Clearly. Yeah, and I obviously did lessons with my kids on Thursday about like pirate stories and dialogue and stuff. But one of them was like, "Why is it?" And I was like, "I don't know." So we researched it as a class, and apparently, just a couple of guys were playing racquetball and started talking like pirates in the game, and this became a tradition that they did. And then somebody wrote a magazine article about it, and then now it's become this thing that all over the world on September the 19th, people talk like pirates. So
I don't know if you remember in the earlier days of Facebook, but on September 19th, one year, you could then go in and change your language to settings to pirate. And we thought that was the coolest thing in the world back then.
It probably was the coolest thing then.
At that point, yeah.
It was a simpler time.
Yeah. Oh, a younger, more innocent age of social media.
Pokes. I remember those.
Yeah.
Oh, pokes. Yeah. So Lazy Cat asks, sort of talking about you a little bit more. Were you a gamer growing up? Like, what kind of games? Have you come to gaming later in life?
I have, actually. So I do a podcast where I interview game designers, and I ask this question as well. And it's interesting how many people are really either really big into board games or not. I was always my ADHD makes it very hard for me to sit still during reading of rules, and that was always a big barrier for me, weirdly. And my parents didn't allow us to have any video game consoles because they wanted us to read, they wanted us to do other things. So my thumbs never got the dexterity that they needed. I managed to. I got a Game Boy at one point, a Game Boy Pocket. It was amazing, and then Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. But I collected Pokemon cards, and I played Pokemon a little bit. And then I play board games, like kind of traditional board games. And then whenever we go over to people's houses, but I far preferred to host people, have them play games, and I go off, I cook for them or something like that. And so it's that like hosting concept or idea that I think is the closest thing to like link, with the game creation. When I was younger, my first game that I kind of designed was, I guess you'd call it an RPG. I didn't know what an RPG was at that time. And it was, I don't know if you know the Xanth book series. It's a book series. There's been like 42 of them. And it's about a slightly alternate version of Florida, where everybody has magical powers. And
it's not just Florida.
Yeah. And everywhere outside of Florida is called Mundania. And that's where, but like there's centaurs and there are all sorts of different things there, creatures there. And that book we had to read the first book we had to read when we were 13, and we all loved it. Wow. So I created an email account, and I had this mysterious friend that I never really met, who was the game master. And every week we would be sent a new map of where everybody's factions were, and then we had to write back into the email address to say what we wanted to have happen. And so I came up with some rules. I had to change the map every week, and nobody knew it was me. So like that was the first kind of game that I tried making, but it was all down to like making something because it was enjoyable to see other people having fun.
Cool. You said like I wasn't allowed, we didn't have a console, like in a really apologetic way, as if we would find that super weird. But regular viewers will know that I grew up without a television, so like
Wow. Okay.
it's all good.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, that's impressive. I don't know if I would have been able to survive quite, without that.
Just to be clear, it's because I'm a vampire, and that was the 19th century. But
Well, there you go.
Victorian
Fine,
ghosts.
fine. Well, that's fair. Forgive me my judgment.
Yeah.
When you assume, you know what they say, like, so
I know.
apologies. But yeah,
Yeah, so I did a lot of reading too, but we were quite obsessed with the board games that were available to us. We did not have a good range, but we had like a number and we played them so much, like Risk, Game of Life, Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, like 5 or 6 games that we just played forever.
we would play a lot of like Pictionary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We actually had a thing where every Christmas we would have people would come over for Christmas night, family friends, and we became well known for we would always do Pictionary after Christmas, the meal, but it became Tackle Pictionary, and that was then what everyone started getting excited about, and people actually brought changes of clothes that might help them. So one woman would bring Lycra so that it would be harder for someone to grab her. People would run up the stairs to get the next clue and then run down, and it was incredibly dangerous. And there were everyone from 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds playing. So it's a real like wonder that nobody got seriously hurt. But yeah, so we would do stuff like that.
So
Much like pickleball, I suppose.
Much like pickleball. I've gotten hurt way more playing pickleball than
An emergency room full of Pictionary injuries is not something that I imagine they see in the local hospital very often.
I just feel like I need to check if your name's really Gelb or if you're actually Calvin, and like pickleball is just your like Calvin ball adventure, because Tackle Pictionary sounds a lot like something Calvin and Hobbes would play.
Yeah. Tackle Pictionary, and it's always surprising who comes out to play seriously. It's the meek people that are like they show up ready to go and pull you down the stairs.
I can't really go for Tackle Pictionary. Did you have a really big house? Like, it wouldn't work in a small house, right?
Well, I think the fact that we had stairs really added to the experience, because
certainly added to the risk.
Totally. But it provided this like chute almost, So like everyone had to get together, and then they had to curve around 2 corners, both on like wooden floors with rugs. So slippering was happening all over the place. Nice. So it was good. We
like a chicane in a
like
road race.
Factor progression, because you all had to go through that small space.
Exactly. But you had an opportunity when someone was starting to go up. Even if you didn't know what the clue was, you could just grab them and pull them down just to slow them down. It ended up being, people started getting really into it.
I love it.
Anyway,
and presumably there was alcohol in the mix as well, which is only going to make it more dangerous. But maybe
there was, but as a family, we're not huge. We were like not huge drinkers. So weirdly, a lot of this was accomplished sober, which is
probably just as well.
And for the Christmas dinner as well, which is
after Christmas dinner. Oh yeah. Everyone was like sweating through their little crowns and everything. Yeah.
I feel like in Andy Lusk's mind, he's got a version of this that's a very Scottish version. Everyone is drunk. People are swearing.
Yeah. Well, I was assuming that because like you're less likely to hurt yourself if you fall often if you are drunk. Yeah. Because you're floppier. Totally. So I did feel, I was wondering if that was maybe why, but no.
Oh, similar amount of ability to think clearly, but yeah, surprisingly not as much alcohol.
Wow.
So talk to us about Hotshot Pickleball. So Roderick says, please just tell us everything about the process, timelines, costs, design, issues, prototyping, the lot.
Cool. Well, so the game is kind of this size. This is not how it's going to look eventually, but this is a prototype, a pre-production prototype. The inside of the game kind of looks like this. So we have like a board and some different like standees. So we have like, this is Kimchi, the character Kimchi, because they're pickles. So, there's Corny Sean, there's Cyril Ceviche, We have a ghost pepper who's named R.I. Pickle. Very good. Stewcumber. We have this one lady who's a carrot. We had called her Sally Kraut, but there are not a lot of carrots in sauerkraut, so we've renamed her to Julienne. So yeah.
Julienne's
anyway,
good.
And then also there are different kinds of cards. I can talk through what they are in a bit if it's of interest. But in terms of like getting, if folks are interested in the actual process, it's mostly cards, a board, and then some of these standees. And it started off like it's been about a year up until this point. Obviously, it's not finished yet because we still haven't even finished the Kickstarter yet. But I had the idea about a year ago, and then it's gone through. I just wanted to. I thought it would be really cool pulling cards, making some decision, and then lifting something up and putting it over the court. And that was all. I originally was like, is it tennis? And the more I was reading and learning about pickleball, I was simultaneously impressed and appalled by its success. So yeah, it's been about a year. But the actual game itself, I think it's been a year of doing it very part-time. And I think that a lot of that process, the phases, if you will, are like initial kind of ideas, then like heavy iteration and playtesting, and thinking about the actual game dynamics itself. And then it's into like art, and there's obviously overlap with this. And then it moves into like prototypes and art, and then refining the art, and then eventually, hopefully, to production. So, in terms of time frames, like the thing that the two longest bits have been art and marketing. So like we wanted to do ad tests, which if folks are interested in digging this, I'm happy to dig into it, but like I won't go into detail yet because I think maybe it'll bore you. But we wanted to do some like ad tests, and pickles were harmed repeatedly in the making.
Were they? Yeah.
Yes.
One journal says.
Yeah, repeat. If you look on our video, we take blades to pickles several times when I take out a knife and have to chop some of them. But yeah, so we're the ad test that we were running kind of paused everything because we wanted to get that right. We wanted to see how it was being received and how it was being sold, or how it was being taken. And a lot of that goes into our strategy with launching Kickstarter, which maybe we can chat about in a second. But it went through about 14 iterations from a rules perspective. And Andy Law was really kind of important from that perspective. Like I actually met Andy, both Andys. I think it was a little past a year ago, somewhere around that.
I think it was during the summer.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and so and Andy very kindly offered to come over and play a different game of mine, and because that was what we were chatting about. And within 5 minutes, he had destroyed it. He had completely broken it, and it was so destroyed that it's actually gone. Like it doesn't exist anymore. And I had been working on that game for 5 years.
Oh my God!
Thinking about it and trying different things and all this kind of stuff. And he destroys it in less than 5 minutes. But very kindly, he was like, "Well, what else do you got?" And so we.
What else can I? I'm having
I'm having so much fun destroying you.
I loved it. I really loved it. I mean, I was devastated, but it was really, really good. That was one of the first times that I got that I actually asked for feedback of that level and had someone who knew what he was talking about give that feedback, which was fantastic. Like those 5 minutes. If anyone out there is thinking about designing games, the sooner that you can just get it in front of somebody who knows a little bit about what they're talking about, because you're going to get it wrong. You're not going to have everything right first time out, and the longer you hold it to yourself, the slower everything is. So I showed him some other games, and he pointed to pickleball. He's like, that should be your first one. Like that's like the closest one to properly ready. It feels pretty simple, straightforward. And so if you're wanting to be serious about this and launching it as like a business and doing it professionally, that seems like a good one to start with. And so yeah, that's basically how the process was. I'm happy to go into costs design issues, prototyping, whatever anybody's interested in.
Yeah. Well, I'll go to another couple of questions. So John Pick has asked, does having backers paying for the project before it's completed add extra pressure to meet timelines? And follow up, or does the received capital easing the uncertainties around the viability of a project make up for the added expectations and demands? Or neither of those things? Has that not been your experience of Kickstarter at all?
Well, so this is my first Kickstarter when it comes to games, but I was very terrified of Kickstarter for reasons that are connected to this. So I guess maybe there's some similarities there. But basically, we had two main options that we were thinking about. We were doing customer research interviews where we were talking to different players, different types of pickleball fans, all sorts of people to try and understand the viability of this and who it might be for and all that kind of stuff. And we actually did not think it would work on Kickstarter. It's done like way better than we thought it would on Kickstarter. We hit our goal in less than an hour. You know, it's over 200%, all that good stuff. But it's not like a £1 million project. And no, we weren't expecting that. But like, it's not a Kickstarter board game. It's not a board gamer's board game when it comes to what you kind of normally would maybe expect to see on Kickstarter. And we actually didn't know if that was the right call or if we should just figure out a way of getting a set printed by ourselves and just start selling it online. Like if we're going to spend money on ads, why would we be driving it to Kickstarter and not to our own e-commerce store, right? So those were our two potential routes. But the more we kind of thought about it was, and talking to board gamers, the more that it was clear that yes, we have one big cohort of people who probably would never go on Kickstarter to buy this. They see it at Target or they'd see it at Barnes and Noble and be like, I know Jill is obsessed with pickleball. This looks funny. Novelty purchase. Oh, maybe it's not that crap of a game. Those types of people are not on Kickstarter. But another cohort of people are, and people still like silly games, even if they are used to more, I don't know, complex ones. And so we kind of decided or realized, or I realized that the reason why I was wanting to avoid Kickstarter was just because of fear. And then that's not a very good reason. So you better go do it and figure it out first in order to do it. Does it add extra pressure to meet timelines? I think it adds pressure to make sure you are very clear with what you're saying. So like our timelines are based off of the worst case scenario or like the realistic worst case scenario that our manufacturers is sharing, plus an assumption that we screw up and something is delayed. And so our hope, if we do everything right, is we deliver early. You know, that's always a hope. But that's one of the things that you have to be mindful of. But there was a chance if we had launched this earlier in the year, we wanted to see if we could make it for Christmas. And as soon as that, like as close as we came to that decision, that then became really stressful because then there's this expectation that not only are you buying it, but if you're buying 10 of them for Christmas presents and it doesn't arrive before Christmas, this is a real big problem.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
So So we were like, okay, the art, we were still iterating on things. We didn't think it was it wasn't quite ready yet. So we said, let's just not worry about it. And we can then take our time and fulfill. Well, right now we're saying we're going to start shipping in May. There's a chance that we might be able to surprise everyone and ship a bit earlier. But that then gives us a whole bunch of time. It's our first Kickstarter. We wanted to make sure everything was all kosher with that. The thing though about expectations, I think there are two parts of that. One, you have to be realistic. The other though is you have to remember that the people who you're talking to are humans, and they are going to hopefully think that you're humans too. And whenever you are communicating information, good or bad, it's more about just being transparent. And if we do not communicate with our backers at all until May, and we're like, whoops, guys, it's actually going to be like August,
October.
That is a very bad way of making sure of respecting the people who are paying so you can do the thing that you want to do. And so I think it's more just making sure that you are okay with being a little bit, you might think of it as vulnerable, but just very open about like, here are the issues, here's our stage, here's what we're saying. And also use that as a bit of an excitement to get them coming along for the ride as well.
And John had another question about if backers on crowdfunded projects often have a loud voice in suggestions and criticisms during development. How hard is it to siphon out the helpful comments from the massive voices? And have you had a lot of feedback on the Kickstarter about the shape of the game as it is now?
We approach this slightly differently than some other Kickstarters. Like I know the folks who are doing Old King's Crown, for example, who are also based in Edinburgh, and they have it's a beautiful game, but they have been engaging with their community quite a lot, not only before Kickstarter, but during and after, and their community has really helped shape some of the decisions that they made. We thought that because it's our first game, or because it's my first game, I really wanted to make sure it was pretty much ready to go. Like all the files are pretty much ready to go, so that we don't run into that problem where we're worried about timeframes, or suddenly it's clear that we really need a gold coin, and we didn't realize we needed a gold coin, and then that means that it's going to be all screwing up our numbers. So what we've done was that because of that year, like we play tested it a lot. It's been play tested, I think 200 times. And we've been taking feedback from people all along that process. Our credits page is going to be reasonably long with all sorts of people who have contributed to that. Having said that, we haven't made the decision to try and figure out a way of like ordering the print before the Kickstarter launches. Not only would that be a little expensive, but if the files are all ready, there are still a few things that we might be able to tweak or change or add. Different rule variations, different ways that the cards might interact, maybe a couple of ideas of we have a cutout, and we have to go to two punch outs. These are kind of punch boards, and we've decided to make the characters a little bit bigger. And because of that, we've had to go to two of these. And now there's a big white block where there's nothing. So I think that calls for introducing something. Like, maybe someone was saying, give all the pickles some hats, or maybe injury tokens, or something, something like that. So I think like we can, there's a little bit of flexibility that we have, but we also wanted to make sure that we were very happy with how it is before we push off. In terms of we've gotten a few suggestions in terms of like other characters to add, like other types of, I have some pictures of ones that we were thinking through, but beat Sampras, for example, and other ones like that. But most of like the suggestions have been like, we want to do a really good solo mode. And so a lot of really interesting feedback has been coming in about that. Or some people are really passionate about print and play, and so they want a way of making their own little characters. And so we want to think about ways that we're making that a little bit easier. So I don't know if that over answers the question.
You could also have Andre Agurke too. It's like, is that Polish for pickle or something? I don't know.
Good. Very good.
Yeah. Beat Sampras and Andre Agurke. We could do this all night. Like,
we
could go down a pun-filled section.
We're fans of Stephen Colbert, and so we were trying to get on his radar. So of course we had to make one from him, and I do have it. I can show you if you want. But it's is Stephen Kohlrabi, like a Kohlrabi, which is a bit of a stretch, but like still funny.
Yeah, coleslaw. No, that doesn't work either. So what has LazyCat asked, what's the process of playtesting been like? Like, how much has it changed from the initial concept? Has it changed a lot? Is it still very similar to when you first sat down and started thinking about pickleball on a table?
So there's certain things that have always stayed the same. Basically the idea of a court, a net, and then a ball going back and forth in 4 different quadrants. That's pretty much stayed the same. And then a lot of other things have changed. So it started off actually as I thought like a programming type game could be fun, where you have cards and then you put them in a specific order that you want, and your opponent puts them in a specific order that they want, and then you flip each card and then you play out the point to see what it was like. Did you strategize well enough? And that was super boring and super dull, and no one liked it. So then we had like one massive deck where people would be able to do all sorts of different things. Then the idea of we have a normal deck, and so we have like a rally deck, which has like cards that help you kind of get to the ball, like that, which lets you move around the court, then take a shot, like hit the ball, and the X is about where the ball's going. And then we have like combo cards and other special cards. And then we also have long shot cards. So these are the cards that you pull if you can't make a shot. And some of them are pretty good, and some of them are not so good. And so that was like that happened probably like version 10 or so up. We were messing around with different types of decks or numbers of decks. We used to have like a whole deck for moving and a whole deck for taking a shot. So that kind of stuff only gets iterated on when you watch someone play, and then you watch like at what point does it look like they get bored, or that they don't like it, or there's any kind of friction, and then you can try switching things up. So yeah, the game has changed a decent amount, but I think but the core kind of concepts and the vibe haven't really.
Can I ask?
Oh, sorry. On you go, Andy.
Did you ever consider like a physical component, like an actual ball? I'm thinking like throw burrito. I don't know if you played that. Yeah. But it's like a card game, but there's also a foam burrito that you throw at your opponent. And
so no, but weirdly, like when we've been showing it off at the conventions, quite a few people will come up and just assume that it's a flick game. Because because like the ball is there and the ball is sitting on the little court, and so and there are some tennis games out there. There's actually even a pickleball game that's come out that's kind of there, that where you flick it and you hit something over the court. But no, we didn't. We had thought about maybe making a 3-dimensional ball that like just sat on the court like that. But yeah, I think when you introduce something like that, then that's a physical activity then, and so. Which can be fun, or it can be a little just distracting because people just throw it at each other.
And it can limit the opportunity to play the game. It's not like I know there's times I haven't played throw burrito at a games night because we've looked around the room and thought somebody, unlike your action Pictionary, like someone will get injured if we play that in this room. So let's not.
Yeah. Action Pictionary is a very kind term. It's tackle Pictionary.
Tackle Pictionary. Or like. Playing this on a train would be quite good if you've got seats opposite each other because of the court. And if you're then like throwing stuff, you can't throw stuff. Well, you could, but not in first class.
People would tut at you if you did.
People would tut. People would tut. Yes.
People would tut.
In first class, yes.
Yeah. I don't know why, because I don't watch Rick and Morty, but Roderick, please reassure me this has nothing to do with Rick and Morty.
It does not. I wouldn't say that we weren't taking some inspiration for the art style, especially the famous. So, Lindsay, there's this famous character in Rick and Morty called Pickle Rick, and it's an episode where Rick, who's one of the main characters, he's a mad scientist, turns himself into a pickle just for the fun of it to see if he could survive the day, and so that's become quite a meme and quite a thing, and. We were definitely like inspired a little bit in terms of the art style, but we wanted to be like a hints of Rick and Morty, not enough to get us sued, but like hints of that, but just less gross. And the game itself is fully like family friendly. It's full of very, very bad puns, but none of them are rude. And the characters, as you kind of can see, that they have elements that might be considered that, but not fully. So yeah.
I can understand why he's pleading, because I've watched maybe like 2 episodes where my Andy was like, listen, there's just this one I want you to watch. And I'm just like watching it like this. Like, oh my God. Like, it's so extreme. If you watch it in isolation, it's one of those shows that like Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the same. Like, if you come into that, you're just like, these people are awful. These jokes are awful. Why would anyone watch this show? Everything about it is awful. You have to watch it from the start.
I think
I'm sure Roderick will be pleased.
If you've never watched Rick and Morty, definitely, well, do or don't, but you probably wouldn't want to start with like interdimensional cable. But I would actually challenge you too, because you won't know what's going on, and I think that's one of the funnier.
I watched one when they were like all on a train, and it was just like full on insane.
The super meta one. Yeah.
The
Yeah, it's
super
a meta
meta
one. That's a
yeah.
meta one. Oh no,
Yeah.
that's that. I would give it a try. I would give the early ones a try. There's some.
You need to get the original format before you start getting variations on the
Before you
format.
start
otherwise-
getting
yeah,
meta. Okay.
yeah.
So just talking about the art there, let's go down here. So Lazy Cat asks, why have you gone for this specific art style that you have? How important do you think art is in getting across the vibe of the game? And we may have something you created earlier that we can show.
Yeah, I can show you some of the kind of concepts. And so like we so
Take that
why
away
does the
so
art
we
look
can
the way
still
it
see
does?
more.
It's because like you of the amazing art talents of our artist Brad Slavin. He's based in Vancouver, and originally, you know, I knew I wanted it to be Pickles playing pickleball, and Brad was up for stupidly made the decision to offer himself up, and so we looked at his art style, and he would draw things like, you know, Rick and Morty adjacent, or Red and Stimpy, or stuff like that. So early on, we were thinking, if the art can be if the characters can go forward, they can be cute-ish, but not super complex, that would probably be a really good sensibility for the game. So to answer the question, it is incredibly important. But this shows like some early prototypes, like concepts of like different directions that we could have gone in, and you can see, anybody who is knowledgeable about Rick and Morty can see like that's definitely the one of the potential directions. Then we were kind of brainstorming about like different types of vegetables, different types of pickles that you might be able to have. So of course, the deviled egg has not survived, but I'm sure that we can bring them in at some point. Sorry.
Have you ever been in a chippy in Scotland and seen the jar of pickled eggs that sits on?
Yeah, terrifies me. I have no idea why someone would do that, but anyway, but so, you know, we were looking at different types of concepts, and then thinking about things like, well, the face, like what kind of, you know, what kind of vibe are we going with the face? Is it more cartoony or not? And so then we eventually kind of settled on what we went with. But like, here's an early kind of set of drawings where you might be able to recognize this handsome character. That's Beat Sampras right there. But as you can see, like, it kind of ended up just slowly morphing into a style that kind of made sense, and then each kind of character evolved and wanted to have both like action shots as well as, you know, play shots or standing shots. So yeah, that's the kind of way it expanded and kind of flowed, and eventually turned into what you kind of see here. Oh, also, I don't know if it's of interest. Anybody there who's like into art will know this, but I'm not, so I didn't. But the role of color, and like how important that how important that is when trying to bring everything together. So like this box, for example, is literally just a whole bunch of characters that were already drawn. We popped it onto a little net, just because we needed a cover for the prototype. And so all of the colors, all of the characters, they're all quite different. But then Brad went through an exercise where he was trying to get a set of he wanted to try and do it in only 7 colors. So 7, I think he ended up stretching to 9 because of the ball. But every single thing then in the game is going to be one color palette, which is really cool. And so again, people who know board games and people who know games, this is completely known already. But for a dullard like me, this is really cool. So, you know, these were the example color palettes that he was looking at. So I think I'm a little colorblind. Like, I can't really tell the difference between a lot of this stuff, but you know, I can tell like Gus's shorts change color, and you know, there's some different things that happen, but you end up then having quite a vibrant, cohesive looking thing at the end of it. And just to show you how it's evolved, it started off looking like this, and now it's going to look like that. Or at least that's the most recent version of it. And those cards to the left are like what these are. So these were all the holding artwork for some of the long shot. All of our long shot cards like gets their own little illustration. So we're very happy about that. And so yeah, that's a little bit about the art.
Yeah, so the background of those cards, for instance, would be one of your color palettes.
Exactly.
So it keeps that consistency.
Exactly. So that orange is always that orange, wherever that orange is being used. And it just makes it feel all nice. But yeah, the overall vibe of minimalist, but then the active part of the illustration is the only thing that you should be looking at. That's definitely a common theme. And we've taken that forward to, if you look at our Kickstarter page, it's a very long page, and trying to bring that into all the other areas of the design as well.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. You can see
I'm
also
just getting distracted by the puns on the cards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Take us through your slideshow if we've got any more. So I presume that's an early prototype of your.
So this was so with the way that I had been playing it was with 2 A4 pages as the two halves of the court, and then Brad, the artist, was like, what if it was a lot smaller than that? Then it would be nice and portable. And I actually thought that wouldn't, like, I thought making it small might be fine for 2 players, but this is also, you can be 4 players as well. So the idea of making it quite small and dinky was a bit, I wasn't quite sure about that. Also, the version that I played on, I literally just made some lines, and he said, well, why don't we try making it smaller, and let's also make it proper dimensions. And I thought that wouldn't be really that big a problem, but luckily he's him, and he actually knows what he's talking about. But so what ended up happening is that this is what ended up. But our court is actually a regulation dimension court, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff for hardcore pickleball fans that they'll then notice, or hopefully notice, whether it's in jokes on the cards or different rules that make it very different to something like tennis, and to like the regulation court. And when we were doing our video, if anybody's seen that, there are, like, we use that effectively by split screening and then transitioning from the actual court to our board, and it's perfect. So like there are certain elements where design is making a massive difference, even when you have an idiot like me who's like, yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough.
Are the rules, are the pickleball rules, the real world rules, set rules, firmly established? Is there some sort, like there is with tennis, Lawn Tennis Association? Is there an official body for pickleball? And that there is? Okay. That answers my question. So
yes, there are official rules. There's even a searing debate in the professional pickleball community about changing certain rules. But yeah, there are certain rules. And so we didn't want to be beholden to the rules, to the full rules for the best version of the game, because sometimes those don't translate. However, we still wanted to make it so that you could play the absolute true rules if you really wanted to, and we will still include those if you want to. But yeah, the rules are set. They have national leagues. They have a tour, like an ATP tour. They have a pickleball tour for professional pickleball players. It's a big thing.
They have what's the word? A body that lobbies, a lobbying body to get them to the Olympics.
They do.
I learned this at the recent Olympics, that pickleball is like one of the challengers to become an Olympic sport.
Oh, they're trying hard, especially because it's going to go to LA.
Exactly.
Yeah, and over here in the UK, actually, it's the Lawn Tennis Association that they're debating. So there is Pickleball Scotland and Pickleball England and stuff like that, and they're debating whether or not to fall under the Lawn Tennis Association or not. And after when I went to learn about this, there's a lot of drama with all that, and it's,
I'm sure.
it's great for me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There is a lot of drama, a lot of like, because apparently paddle, which is another sport which people might have heard of, it's played in like a box, but that they're under lawn tennis, and they've gotten a raw deal, and so the pickleball associations don't necessarily like the idea of working with the lawn tennis association, and it's fantastic.
Well, yeah, I get the feeling. I mean, pickleball feels a little maverick. You know what I mean? Lawn tennis is very, you have to wear whites and all that, Wimbledon and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but they want it. They want it. So
right.
if they fall under it, then they have the responsibility of like setting up courts and trying to raise awareness for the sport, and they get government funding for that. So so they
huge.
get a bit more funding. Yeah.
Yeah, like the dark world of political lobbying and pickleball. Your next game has to be a murder mystery.
And with the same characters.
With the same characters.
Same characters.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's going to be taking place in like in a parliamentary question room, and totally, absolutely.
I've given evidence to parliamentary questions, so if you need any research, you know where to come.
I can't wait for this guy to be sitting across from you, interrogating you, while Jane Fonda workouts play in the background.
What I like about this is that, like, he is wearing tights because they're purple, so he must be. I really like it.
He's wearing lycra. He's wearing a leotard.
He's wearing a leotard, but he's also bothered to have tights under the leotard because, yeah.
Oh no, he's a 1980s dad. His name's Cornichon. He's a 1980s dad. He thinks the coolest thing in the world is to put on a Jane Fonda workout video and just pump yourself to that. So like that's his whole vibe.
So can you? I'll take this. Have we got
by the
more?
way, this is what pickleball looks like.
Let's do that. I don't want to put anything over Mark's face. So this is real life pickleball.
So this is a pickleball court. This is what it kind of looks like. This is kind of behind the scenes, some shots from our video, but you can see like how it's played in terms of how big the court is.
Are those official colors? Is it green and purple? Because that would be awesome.
Oftentimes, so yeah, but sometimes, oftentimes for some reason it's blue. The court is usually blue, but yeah, you sometimes get purple as well.
So shall I remove the slideshow, or is there more to come?
Yeah,
that's it. Okay,
that's all
excellent.
Good,
yep. So can you tell us a bit more about the team behind the game? Like who's been helping you bring this to life?
Yeah, so I mean, artist is Brad Slavin, based in Vancouver. Andy, who's not here, other Andy, has been super helpful with oftentimes beginning with telling me no, that's not right, and then try doing this because it's better. But no, he's been super helpful with the design of it as well, and contributed in that area quite a lot. We also have our wordsmith, someone who's been helping us with copy and copy editing. His name's Stuart Loving Good, out in LA. And we also have Brennan Shanks, who's been helping us with partnerships. We've treated this as an experiment and as a to try a whole bunch of things. So we've been cold calling board game shops and seeing if they're interested, and cold calling pickleball people and seeing if they're interested in partnering. And so the team is we meet every week. And brainstorm about what we're doing, have all of our different tasks. My wife Amy is also very, very important, taking on the ops kind of role and keeping us all on track and project managed. And she was the one who basically designed our Kickstarter page as well. So yeah, we're up to about 7 people who've been working on it in one form or another.
I can definitely see that it has huge potential to be that kind of game that's at the checkout of, well, like Waterstones or Blackwell's here, Barnes and Noble, that you're just like, oh, like Uncle Jim loves pickleball. Oh, here's a pickleball game. Like, I'll add that. I can definitely see it.
That's our hope. That's our hope. But in terms of the phase, someone was asking about like the timescales and everything like that. The way that we see it is that Kickstarter is a market validation experiment, but it's also obviously a pre-sale. But then after that, we then can see, okay, does that mean that would any distributors be up for talking, or consolidators in the States? Like I didn't even know that a consolidator was even a job. But it allows you to, get those early orders in, but also test that viability or show that viability to someone like a Target or like a Barnes and Noble, at least to show some evidence that someone is willing to buy this thing.
Yeah, we sold a bunch of copies to Kickstarter for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And we hit our goal in an hour, and all that kind of stuff. Any little bit of validation helps, and I think that's so like we're only at phase 1 of the different routes of trying to see how we could sell it in different ways. Yeah.
And in terms of like other games, so you're at stage 1 of this game, but is there anything else that was in that big pile of games that you were thinking about? Is there anything else that you're like now developing and playtesting, and what's next after Hotshot Pickleball?
So there are 4 other ones that I'm trying to work on at various degrees of. Andy very kindly comes over about once a month to destroy my hope in some of them.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like honestly, I love it so much. It is a 4-hour marathon where I get slapped about all over the place, and it's great because at the end I'm like, I got it. So one recently is unfortunately been cut. It's been destroyed. I haven't been able to get it to a state that he likes it. But one day it'll come back, and that the name of that is Fat Bear, and it's about fattening up bears before winter and dropping poos to slow other bears down. But it's dead for now, so it'll come back. But then another one is an abstract strategy game called Aster, and it's about taking building little settlements on planets, and then turning those into ships, and then putting ships around a board. The shape is the seed of life kind of design. So it takes place in space, and these ships are kind of zooming around these colored rings, jumping over each other, and then slowly building these like cosmic petals to try and win the game. That Andy actually likes, and he's also been really, really helpful in terms of the development on that. Probably the most the one that he's had an impact on the most. And then I also have a tile placement game that's right now it's set in 1800s Constantinople, and it uses the Einstein shape, which is the shape that can fit into each other in a whole bunch of different ways, but the pattern never repeats. And right now that's a gem. You find gems, and then you turn them into jewelry orders from different patrons who are, you can fulfill their jewelry orders by placing different shapes on these gems in order to harvest them. And then a few others, but hopefully we can get them out like relatively quick.
Suejan says in the chat, Aster sounds interesting.
I think it's very interesting. What's also really cool is like the pieces. So there are 3 types of pieces, and one of the pieces that I'm really interested in getting done, I think I have some here, but right now I use a 3-sided dice, so a D3 for these ships, because you can create them at level 3, level 2, level 1. Each of them moves in different ways. When you jump over one, it goes down a level. But I'm talking with an industrial designer to help create like a custom shape that just looks really cool, and the vibe will be like ancient alien, so like sailing sky ships on streams of sunlight. It's like that kind of a vibe.
Nice.
So we're playing around with a whole bunch of different things from a thematic perspective. But yeah, this whole thing is this is the seed of life design, and it's part of this wider I don't know if you want to call it a movement or whatever, but sacred geometry. Some people ascribe kind of spiritual significance to certain types of shapes. And so the backstory that we're saying is that, it's significant because 10,000 years ago, an alien race kind of came down and gave us this really cool game. We just lost it to time, and so we're just rediscovering it again.
Yeah,
Nice.
that sounds really cool. I've got the book. Oh yeah, the Quadrivium. I'm gonna get it because it's a cool book. I always like an excuse to show off. To the cosmology in the Quadrivium has got all of those.
Oh, the shapes. Yeah.
The retrograde motions and stuff
Yes.
of the planets. Yeah, I love them.
Tauruses. So like one of our pieces
Yeah.
could be a Taurus, which is like a donut. The 3D version is like a donut.
Yeah. Look,
So
the kiss of Venus. I love that one.
oh yeah,
My favorite
that's
one.
so cool.
It's just so beautiful. It's
kind
like
of looks
Earth
like it.
and
Yeah,
Earth and Venus, I think.
Oh, that's really cool. Kiss of Venus. I haven't
Yeah.
actually seen that one. I got to look up the Kiss of Venus. This is a D3. They're not very common, but they're really, really cool. And they kind of look like little ships. So we're using those as an inspiration. I have a shard version of it, which I think looks very cool. So like some really nice looking pieces. The whole vibe is supposed to be that it could live within it could have been a game just like chess or Go, but we just have forgotten about it, or we haven't been able to
yeah, I'm a big sucker for that kind of that reflection of ancient stuff,
Great.
real world
Yeah,
stuff that's now been rediscovered.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of this because that's the Kiss of Venus, but it's a 5-pointed star.
Oh,
That's
nice.
why it's so cool. Because
Very
like
cool.
in the ancient world, Venus would be like a 5-pointed star. How did they know? How did they know?
How did they know indeed?
I guess they just looked, right? Suejan, yeah, very familiar with
Sacred geometry. Yeah, sacred geometry. Cool.
Also a student for decades of math tiling. There you go.
Oh, cool. So there you go. We'd love to, if you want to play test these it's the Einstein shape. And if you look at the Einstein shape, I have if you have time, I can show you what they look like from a design perspective.
Do we have time, everyone? I think we've got time.
We don't. It's perfectly fine.
So we do have time. We do. Shall I add it? I'll wait till you've finished it, and then I'll add it back to the stage. I'll just check if there's any other. Oh, just while you're doing that, Andy asked, "Did we enjoy Tabletop Scotland? Tabletop Scotland. I've typed that wrong. It's new venue this year. How was the playtesting? Maybe Andy Leesk, you can answer that while Gelb is lining it up. Did you have a good time at Tabletop Scotland?
I did. I wish we'd gone there a little bit more in force, but yeah, it was good. Particularly, I was invited along by Phil, another feathered friend of the show, to help sort of mentoring. You did too, Lindsay, help mentoring at the game jam. So that was nice, seeing all these kind of teams of people who are trying to make a game in kind of 48 hours, including Sage, obviously one of our players from Lawhammer. So that was very nice to see this kind of mad spurt of creativity as people were attempting to entirely kind of conceptualize, develop, iterate, and playtest the game in an incredibly short period of time. So it was nice.
Yeah, I played the one that Sage's team were making. It was I think what was the theme for that competition was like stuck in the loop or something.
Yeah.
Stuck in the loop,
Yeah.
and they made one that was in a hadron collider, and you had to like work out. It was like a logic solving puzzle, which I love anyway. And you had to work out from various cards the conditions that were set for the experiment. It was quite a good game. I would play that in future.
Definitely. My favorite was there was a what do you call it? A Wheel of Death. You know, the motorbike thing where motorbikes go around in a circle. There was a Wheel of Death card game. Yeah, Wall of Death. That's it. And I don't like. I'd love to see what, because we were there on the Saturday, so I never saw the finished version on the Sunday. But because I played it and it was all right, and then I had a nice chat with them about how they were like missing a trick, because it was very, you did things in your turn. There was no interaction in other people's turns, and I was like, but you've got like booby trap cards, like oil slicks and stuff. Why am I playing that in my turn? Why am I not playing that in your turn and messing you up? And they were like, oh, we haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
And so hopefully by the end of it, it would become a very, very good, interactive game.
Nice.
Shall I bring it up?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So so this is the kind of this is the shape. This is the Einstein shape.
And they only discovered this recently, didn't they? They've been looking for ages for a shape that tessellates without repeating itself, and they finally found one. Yeah.
They did have two shapes that so someone had figured it out, like having two distinct shapes in a different pattern that then would work. But when they found one shape, then Einstein is one stone. And so then they called it that. And it kind of looks, I think it kind of looks like a hat. Ooh,
like a Jamiroquai hat specifically.
A Jamiroquai hat, exactly, or a Mad Hatter's hat. So I'll show you kind of what it looks like on here, and then I'll show you what the pieces are. But basically, the idea is that these are different pieces. So like these that you put down, and then you can see like they've split up, and they're triangles and other shapes that then form. So then you have these things that are like, I'm calling them settings, and then you put them over and you find the different shape combinations that you need in order to fulfill orders. So if somebody wants, like, a certain type of ring that has different breakdowns of different gems, you can then find those and then harvest them and then put them there. But what's really cool is that you can like create all sorts of different shapes within them, and I just think that's really cool. And then you can screw up your opponents by leaving your setting on something that they want, and slowly harvest them and stuff like that. So yeah,
it's interesting. It's like a really like tactile, more complicated, like Splendor, like doing the gems, but in a really like tactile way. That's interesting.
Quite a few people have mentioned Splendor, and like I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like, I don't know if it's too close, then maybe the theme needs tweaking or whatever, or maybe it still works because it's what people know.
I think it still works because it's so totally different in terms of the gameplay.
Yeah, the gameplay. Yeah.
Like, the thing in Splendor is you're fulfilling orders for people, right?
Yeah.
And they happen to be gems, but it's nothing like this.
Yeah, and also to be blunt, like the theme in Splendor doesn't really matter. Like very quickly. And actually, I play the Marvel one more than the normal one anyway, so I'm Infinity Stoning it. So
nice. Marvel would work. I mean, if you'd like to get in touch with the people of Marvel, I'm very happy to create that version. But yeah,
I mean, we could talk to Matt, who does the Marvel RPG.
There you go.
We do have an in.
Easy. So like, so different pieces and then different gems, and you build those up. And the black ones is obsidian, and obsidian is just like really hard, and not a lot of people like it, but some people really like it. And if you have, but you always have to get obsidian. You get negative points, or if you
have it left in your hand. Yeah.
Exactly. So like there's it's so far it still needs a bit of work. But we playtested at Tabletop Scotland along with the Aster game, and folks seem to like it. So I think it's one of these two that I think will be next.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. That reaches us to the end of our hour. It's been great to talk to you. Obviously, we met at Tabletop Scotland. I've heard about your games many times. Like Andy Law comes home, like really excited. I heard about Fat Bear.
I'm surprised. I have to say, given your love of puns, I'm surprised you resist calling it Pooh Bear instead. If pooing is a game element.
So Fat Bear is a competition that happens every year in Alaska at a national park in Alaska, and it's the Fat Bear competition. And people will follow certain bears, and they'll like try and guess which one's going to end up, the fattest bear. So that's why it's Fat Bear.
I guess there's not much to do in Alaska.
It's long winters in Alaska. You got to do something with the time.
People they live stream it, so like it's a big thing. You can you can pick a bear.
Wow.
I'm gonna go check that out.
Yeah, I know that's it.
Winter's fast approaching. Yeah, I would say now's the season to jump into Fat Bear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it needs work. It's too broken. But last thing I wanted to show is one of our friends knitted us a giant pickle, which has also been on the journey with us to all of the like Tabletop Scotland and stuff like that. And quite a few people have asked if this could be like a perk that you get with the game. And unfortunately not, but still quite fun.
You could give them as a perk. You could give them the knitting pattern and the yarn.
That's good. That's great. That's a great idea.
Give them the craft kit.
Some assembly required. Yeah.
We do have a custom illustration perk. So if somebody wants to look like one of our pickles, they can do that, and Brad will will create a beautiful caricature of them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I've popped the link up there. It's in the chat, so please do go and check out the Kickstarter. How long have you got left on the Kickstarter? You're already funded, so that's great. If people back it, then they know it's definitely going to go ahead. But how long have they got to back it now?
Until the 10th of October. So I think that's 20 days or 19 days.
19.
We will take the links and we'll put them on our Discord server where there's loads of people, and it's also gone out to our patrons today. So as always, thank you so much to our patrons who make Inside the Rookery possible. Thank you, Gelb. It's been great to chat to you and hear more about your many ideas. We look forward to this game, but also many more in the future. And thank you to my fellow Rooks, Andy and Mark, for joining me on this pickleball adventure. And as always, thank you to everyone in the comments in the chat for making it so much fun for us to do these streams on a weekly basis. Get well soon to Andy Law. He's still not very well. Big shout out to the Women in Gaming Society, newly formed at Abertay University in Dundee. We're going to be visiting them soon to do some lectures for them. But until the next time, all that remains to say is good night and caw-caw, caw-caw. See you soon.